Pastor Mike Hoggard, pastor of Bethel Church in Festus, Missouri, and head of prophetic research ministry, with another Watchman video broadcast. We're going to go back to the beginning of this ministry, and actually I'm going to go back farther than that, into my own life. In 1997, God calls me into a ministry to study Bible prophecy, study things that are going on in the world that's related to what is in the Scriptures. If you have followed this ministry for any length of time, you know that I believe that if it exists in the world, it's recorded in the Scriptures. And if it's not recorded in the Scriptures, it's not real. And so God has just sort of laid that upon my heart. And that's sort of the scope and the foundation of this ministry. And so anyway, 1997, God calls me to this ministry, and I'm imagining in my mind all these different things I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the New World Order, and I'm going to talk about the Mark of the Beast, and I'm going to talk about this. And one of the ideas that I had in my mind was I wanted to do some sort of talk or teaching on UFOs. And that goes back all the way back to my childhood. I remember, and I YouTubed this thing the other day. I did a YouTube search of it. I remember a TV show that came on when I was a kid. And if you didn't know this about me, I was, not so much now, but I was a typical 70s TV junkie kid. That's who I was. Watched television, watched shows. The $6 Million Man was one of my favorites. I used to love that show, and all the other. But there was one that really caught my attention. I was so sad when they took it off the air. It was called Project UFO. It was one of these TV shows by Jack Webb, you know, the Dragnet guy. And featured a couple of Air Force investigators going around from place to place researching alleged sightings of unidentified flying objects. This was actually based upon a real-life project by the Air Force called Project Blue Book. And Project Blue Book went around and investigated thousands upon thousands of alleged sightings of unidentified flying objects. They were not identified. The investigators would go out into the field, they would talk to witnesses, they would look at photographs or maybe film, or they would look at sites and this, that, and the other. And I will say that in most cases, Project Blue Book determined that the unidentified flying object phenomenon that was being seen by people, for the most part, was explainable somehow by natural phenomenon or man-made scenarios or whatever it was. But there was always a percentage of sightings of flying objects, cigar-shaped objects, disc-shaped objects, lights in the sky that moved in ways that aircraft that we have or that we know about doesn't move this way. And there was always a small percentage of that the Air Force had to admit still remained unexplained and unidentified. They had to start off, they had to do all of this because I think it was back in 1947, somewhere around June of 1947, an airplane pilot by the name of Kenneth Arnold, flying his airplane around Mount Rainier in Washington, reported seeing 9 disc-shaped objects. He described them as shaped like a pie plate, half-moon shaped, or something like a pie plate that was cut in half with a sort of a convex triangle in the rear, or simply saucer-like. And that sort of gave birth to the term flying saucer. It's a term we still use today. Oh, I saw a flying saucer. Not too long after that, we have, and I'll mention the name here and you'll know it, Roswell, New Mexico. Something happened, made big headlines. RAAF captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region. Here's another story. Army reveals it has flying disc found on ranch in New Mexico. Now, those were the initial stories. These were the stories that came out from the official channels, from the Air Force and from the Army, that came out from them before the call went out to cover this thing up. Now, I wasn't in Roswell. I didn't see the object. I didn't see the wreckage. I didn't see, supposedly, there was bodies that were taken away, little bitty, odd-shaped bodies. I didn't see any of that. I'm going with the facts that we have in hand here. We do know for a fact that the radio, the newspapers, the Army released a statement, the Air Force released a statement saying, we found a flying saucer, a saucer-shaped craft crashed near Roswell, New Mexico. That's the story that they released. They come out a few days later and said, oh, no, did we say that? That was, we didn't want to tell anybody because we didn't want to scare anybody, but we had, this was a weather balloon we had up there, and so here's this Air Force officer posing with this wreckage, quote unquote, of a weather balloon and saying, see, this is really all this is. And I remember, and I know some of this stuff so well because I was the kid who on library day, going to the public school library, I went straight for the section of books that dealt with Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, UFOs. I wanted to know what they were. I remember in 7th grade, I actually did a sort of like a science project. I was going to a Christian school at the time, and I did a science project on UFOs. And my teacher kind of frowned on that, but she went ahead and let me do it. And for my sources now for this science project, I was talking about and describing UFOs, and I was using clippings from one of these supermarket magazines, okay? You know, reliable information there. And I remember that, you know, along with the science project, we had to come up with a summation. And I remember even back in 7th grade, going to this Christian academy, I remember writing my summation sort of like this, that I believed that UFOs were somehow, some way, a trick of Satan. That was the conclusion I came to way back in those days, and have been interested in UFOs ever since. Now, 1997, God calls me into this ministry, and I want to do something on UFOs. And it's been all of these years now, some 14 years, and just now, God has released me and given me permission, given me knowledge from the Bible on what these things are, because people have been seeing these things for years. There is cave artwork. There are Mayan sculptures. There are Renaissance religious paintings, usually centered around either the birth or the death of Jesus Christ somehow, some way, or some religious theme, where these UFOs are showing up. Strange flying craft in the sky that all of a sudden we're looking at this artwork and we're going, what? What's that there in the background there? How did that get there? And so I began, you know, over the years I've been researching all of this stuff and just sort of compiling information in my mind. I remember one of the books that I read back in my public school library days. I read this book. I thought it was fascinating. It was Chariots of the Gods by Erich von Daniken. Now, I think von Daniken's work, and I think the way, I don't know if you remember the show, remember the show Project UFO. Here's Jack Webb at the beginning. You can YouTube this and hear what he's saying. He starts the show out in Jack Webb style. Ezekiel saw the wheel. This is the wheel that Ezekiel saw. And even as a child, I was going to church at that time, and I'm going, whoa, wait a minute. You mean UFOs are in the Bible? And here's Erich von Daniken. And I thank God that my mother raised me in church, and I sort of had my head on straight concerning what was true and what was not, and I just believed that the Bible was true. And here is von Daniken telling everybody in his book, Chariots of the Gods, that actually what Ezekiel was describing was the mothership of the aliens. When the aliens came and they seeded this planet with life, and they left it, you know, left it alone. Von Daniken had an explanation for Genesis chapter 1 where God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. Von Daniken says, well, that was the UFO aliens talking to one another in their UFO council room saying, hey, we're going to plant mankind upon this planet. And we're going to see what happens. We're going to see how long it takes for him to destroy himself. That was sort of von Daniken's premise. But some of the research von Daniken did was pretty interesting, because he began to show that all for the thousands of years of recorded history, mankind has been seeing things up in the sky, writing about it, carving its image somehow, some way. Humanoid-like people with what looks like space helmets and suits on, and odd-shaped creatures that we have never seen on this planet before. Von Daniken began to write all this stuff down and chronicle it, and we look at that and we're going, well, okay, it needs an explanation here. And the phrase chariots of the gods is what really got me. And all of these years I've been wanting to talk about UFOs, just extensively in one big gigantic video here. And finally, God is so faithful. I believe that God, in the face of all the lies that are out there, in the face of all the false doctrines and all the things that are being taught, I am of the firm belief that God wants the truth out there. I'm not the only one who has the truth. There are many others out there who are sticking with the Bible, and I will tell you that the Bible is the source of all the truth. All the information that I'm going to give you is just basically in my head, years of research, things that I know. But now when I look at the Bible, it all makes sense. And we're just going to talk about the UFO phenomenon, and we're going to talk about what the Bible has to say about this. First place we're going to go, here's the verse. And in fact, this is, God will usually give me a word, okay? A word to study in the Bible. When I was looking for the secret of Freemasonry, God said, now let's look at the word secret in the Bible. And I just kind of chased the bunny trail down and looked there, lo and behold, there's the secret of Freemasonry. We have that recorded in several of our videos. And so I'm looking for UFOs in the Bible. And God gave me a word. And that word, boy, Eric Von Daniken's book, Chariots of the Gods, the word was chariot. I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you one key verse here that if we get this one, then we'll get all the rest of them. And I'm going to kind of take my time and explain how the Bible lays this thing out about what those lights in the sky are, the fact that they can move from one place to another without any acceleration, the fact that reports tell us that they fly one direction and then make a right angle turn without ever stopping or slowing down. How is it that they're able to do that? What's going on at Area 51? What was Adolf Hitler doing during World War II? Why did the CIA have to go get all of his scientists? We're going to talk about all of those things, but we have to deal with this one verse. We have to get our bearings straight. We have to know the truth concerning what the Bible means when it uses the word chariots. Psalm chapter 68, verse 17. The chariots of God are 20,000, even thousands of angels. The Lord is among them as in Sinai in the holy place. Now, let's break this down and let's let the Bible make some sense out of it. Number one, it says God has chariots. Now, we don't expect to ever see God riding in a Ford, a Dodge, a BMW, a Hyundai. We don't expect to see God riding in some sort of Greco-Roman chariot that you would see in a Hollywood film. But yet the Bible tells us that God has chariots. What are those chariots? He says the chariots of God are 20,000, even thousands of angels. And so the Bible is telling you that there is a special creation of angels, or a special order of angels, that actually represent the chariots of God. They are and we're going to